I found her journal. The first page said, "Private, do not read." But I did. And what I found, she'd been planning to leave me for over 3 years. Not because she was unhappy, but because she wanted to leave clean. Slowly, silently, without guilt. She called it a strategic exit. And the worst part? She made me the villain in her version of the story, while I was still making her coffee every morning. I'm not the kind of man who invades his wife's privacy. I've never snooped through her phone, never checked her emails. I've always believed trust was sacred, until the day it shattered like glass under my hands. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon. My wife, Rachel, had taken our son, Ben, to her mother's for the weekend. I stayed behind, hoping to finally clean out our cluttered home office. I wasn't looking for secrets, just paperwork. I opened the second drawer of the desk, where I usually kept tax documents and bills, when I noticed a small leather notebook tucked underneath a stack of folders. It was navy blue, with the kind of cover that looked expensive but worn from use. I pulled it out, assuming it was a to-do list or something related to her freelance writing. Then I saw the writing on the first page. Private, do not read. Start date, March 14th, 2020. That should have stopped me, but it didn't. Something about the bold underline beneath "do not" hit me like a challenge, a warning, a sign. I sat down, stared at it, and something inside me, the part of me that had been doubting, questioning, sensing something off, whispered, "If she's hiding something, you already know why." So I opened the journal. The handwriting was hers, neat, deliberate, familiar. I read the first paragraph, and my blood ran cold. March 14th, 2020. I'm writing again after a year away. The weight of what I feel is getting too heavy to carry. I love my son, but I can't keep faking it with Ethan anymore. He's kind, he's stable, he's everything people think a woman should want, but I'm suffocating. Ethan, that's me. She was talking about me. I stopped loving him a long time ago. I don't even know exactly when. Maybe before Ben was born. I stayed because it made sense. It looked good from the outside. It was safe. But it was never love, not real love. I turned the page. My hand was shaking. I've started thinking about an exit plan. Not yet. I need time. I need money. I need to make sure Ben won't be too shaken. I'll start pulling away slowly. Nothing dramatic, just colder, quieter. Let Ethan think it's natural. That way, when I leave, it won't feel like betrayal. It'll feel like relief. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't reading a moment of frustration. This wasn't a vent. It was a blueprint. A long, methodical, intentional plan to leave me. If I do this right, he won't even fight me. He'll let me go. I'll just look tired, distant. I'll say things like, "We've grown apart." I'll make him believe it's mutual. This wasn't a story about falling out of love. It was a story about managing a breakup, one she had rehearsed for over 3 years. And I had no idea. I closed the journal and sat there for a long time, my head spinning, my hands numb. The woman I cooked for, kissed goodnight, defended in every argument, the mother of my child. She had been preparing to leave me with the cold precision of a strategist playing chess, and I had been just another piece on the board. The worst part wasn't what I had read. It was realizing how normal the last 3 years had felt. She cooked dinner with me, took road trips, laughed at my dumb jokes. She even threw me a surprise birthday party last year, with our friends, with Ben, with cake and candles and hugs. I blew them out, thinking I had everything a man could want. But she was just checking off a box in the keep it calm phase of her exit plan. I opened the journal again. I needed more. Not because I wanted to hurt myself, because I wanted to understand how deep this went. June 2nd, 2020. Ethan asked if I'm okay. I told him I'm just tired. He believed me. Of course he did. He always does. That line hit me harder than anything else. He always does. Like it was a flaw. Like my trust was something to be exploited. Sometimes I feel like I'm already living two lives. In one, I'm the quiet wife, smiling at PTA meetings. In the other, I imagine a different apartment, a job just for me, and a man who actually sees me, someone who challenges me, someone who isn't Ethan. I couldn't read anymore. I shut the journal, shoved it back into the drawer, and closed it so hard the handle rattled. For the rest of that day, I moved like a ghost. I didn't eat. I didn't turn on the TV. I just walked from room to room in our home, the home I thought we built together, now wondering what parts of it were real and what parts were staged. The framed wedding photo in the hallway, the handwritten note she left in my lunchbox last month, the Saturday mornings where we drank coffee side by side in silence. Were those love, or were those camouflage? When Rachel and Ben came home that Sunday, I had to pretend. Ben came running in first, hugged my waist like always. "Dad, Nana made banana muffins, and I saved you one." I smiled. Forced. "Thanks, buddy." Rachel walked in right after, keys jingling, carrying a Trader Joe's bag. "Hey," she said, "how was your weekend?" I looked at her face. Same face I kissed every morning, same voice I'd memorized in dreams. But behind that face now, I saw everything differently. I saw the words she wrote. "Just act tired. Just act distant. He'll think it's natural." I forced a smile. "Quiet. Got some organizing done." She nodded, walking past me to the kitchen like nothing was wrong. And I realized something terrifying. She had already started leaving. Not physically, but emotionally. Years ago. And I never noticed. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling while she scrolled her phone. Probably Pinterest. Probably some recipe or design board for a life that didn't include me. And I kept thinking, does she even know that I know? Does she know I opened her world, page by page? I turned my head, watched her for a long moment. She looked peaceful, too peaceful. And I thought to myself, this woman is planning her escape, and I'm just the last obstacle she's waiting to quietly step around. For the next few days, I went through the motions. Wake up, make coffee, pack Ben's lunch, answer emails, smile at Rachel across the counter like I wasn't screaming inside. But I wasn't just pretending anymore. I was studying. Every word she said, every glance she stole, every "how was your day" that sounded a little too even. Because now I had context. Now I had the script she was reading from. Just act tired. Just be a little cold. Make him think you've drifted naturally. She didn't need to break my heart in a single blow. She was slow poisoning me with familiarity. One night after dinner, Ben was in bed, and Rachel was watching some home renovation show on Netflix. I sat beside her, pretending to scroll my phone. Out of nowhere, she said, "Have you ever thought about moving?" My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, not looking away from the screen. "I don't know. Like a smaller place, less to clean, less expensive." I stared at her. Not the words, but the timing. In her journal, she'd written, "At some point, I'll casually bring up the idea of simplifying, downsizing, get him used to change." This was that moment. I was watching it happen. "I like it here," I said slowly. She smiled, but it was thin. calculated. Just a thought. That night, I went back to the journal. I told myself not to, but I did. I had to see if she was still writing, if the lie was still alive. And it was. The last entry was dated just 5 days ago. I think it's working. He doesn't suspect a thing. I brought up moving. He seemed surprised but not suspicious. I'll wait a little longer, maybe next year. I'm scared of being alone, but more scared of waking up 10 years from now and still being his wife. That line burned. 10 years. We've been married 8, and she was already counting down to her escape anniversary. I couldn't sleep that night. I walked around the neighborhood like a ghost. I kept asking myself the same question. Do I confront her now? Or do I play her game? Let her think she's still in control. Let her keep writing in that little blue journal, convinced I'm clueless. And then, when the time is right, flip the whole damn script. I didn't know what the end of this would look like. Divorce? Counseling? War? All I knew was this. I wouldn't be the fool quietly walked out on. Not after reading the plan. Not after seeing how methodical it was. If she wanted a performance, she was about to get one. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. No more guessing. No more hoping she'd somehow snap out of it. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unhappy. She was calculating. And now, so was I. I started mirroring her, not in a petty way, but strategically. If she wanted to drift, I'd let her think I was drifting too. She brought up moving again a few days later, this time mentioning a place closer to the city. I nodded thoughtfully. Yeah, maybe a new chapter would be good. She blinked. I saw it. The flicker of confusion in her eyes, like I was rewriting the lines she expected me to follow. That night, I started making copies, photos of every journal entry. I scanned each page, uploaded them to a secure drive. I didn't know if I'd need them in court, but I knew one thing for sure. If she was going to blindside me down the road, I'd have receipts. The deeper I went into the journal, the more ruthless it got. He'll be fine. He always bounces back. That's the thing about him. He's loyal to a fault. I'll suggest therapy when the timing's right. Not to fix things, but to make the process look healthy. It wasn't just heartbreaking. It was insulting to think I'd been giving my all to someone who treated me like a stepping stone. Meanwhile, I began watching Ben more closely. Not in a paranoid way, but with fresh eyes. What had he seen? What had he heard? He was too young to understand manipulation, but kids pick up on energy. And I saw it in the way he looked at us. He didn't ask why we weren't holding hands anymore. He didn't say anything when Rachel started staying up late in the other room with her laptop. But I saw the shift in his drawings. Stick figures that used to be side by side now had space between them. I couldn't let him grow up thinking this was normal. A mother slowly emotionally exiting a marriage while playing the role of functional partner. A father smiling through teeth, clenched in betrayal. I had to do more than survive this. I had to control the exit, if it came to that. I called a lawyer, just to ask questions, I told myself. But deep down, I knew. I laid it all out. The journal, the timeline, the mental manipulation, the planning. The lawyer didn't flinch. You're not crazy, he said. You're ahead of the curve. Most people don't realize what's happening until the papers hit the table. He advised me to document everything and keep calm. If she thinks you're unaware, she'll stay sloppy. And if she thinks I'm leaving, I asked, she'll pivot, maybe even weaponize the kid. Don't give her that leverage. I left his office feeling powerful, not in a vengeful way, in a protective one, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about what kind of story Ben would grow up in, and I'd be damned if it was one where his dad got erased without ever having a say. After talking to the lawyer, something inside me shifted permanently. I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was preparing, planning, and I wanted to know how far she was willing to go to keep her little act intact. So I gave her a test. It was subtle. Over dinner one night, I brought up a coworker going through a divorce. I didn't name names, just said he felt blindsided. He told me his wife said she stopped loving him 3 years ago, but didn't say anything until now. I said casually, spearing a piece of grilled chicken. Said she just kept pretending until she was ready to go. Rachel barely looked up. "That's sad," she said, chewing. "But I guess people fall out of love sometimes." I watched her carefully. No flinch, no hesitation. She just kept eating, like we were discussing a news article. "Would you ever do that?" I asked. "Stay with someone long after you stopped loving them, just to make it easier to leave later?" She paused for half a second too long. "I mean, I guess I wouldn't want to hurt anyone unnecessarily. But isn't pretending still hurting someone?" Now she looked up. Her smile was thin. "Why are you asking me this?" "Just wondering," I said, sipping my water. "It's been on my mind." She nodded slowly and went back to her food. But her hands were tighter around the fork than usual. Later that night, I checked the journal again. And sure enough, there was a new entry. He asked me about someone faking love in a marriage. It rattled me. I don't think he suspects anything. But I need to be careful now. I can't slip up. Not yet. She didn't know I had already read every page. Didn't know I was watching the real-time updates of her performance. She thought I was still asleep in the illusion. But I was wide awake. I started making other changes too. More time with Ben. More solo parenting activities. Documented. I made sure I was the one picking him up from school more often. Volunteering at his Saturday soccer games. Not to win points. To establish a visible, active parental role. Something the court would see, if it ever came to that. And the more I leaned in, the more she leaned out. She started working later. Taking phone calls in the bedroom with the door closed. I didn't ask questions, but I listened. I bought a small recording device. Nothing illegal, just audio in our shared space. I didn't trust what was being said behind that door anymore. And I had learned the hard way that sometimes people confess things when they think you're not listening. One night, through the door, I heard her whisper, "No, not yet. He's still clueless." Silence. "I'm making it gradual, like we planned." Like we planned. She was talking to someone, and now it wasn't just her betrayal I had to consider. It was theirs. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, while she snored softly, unaware. And all I could think about was the cold precision behind that voice. The timeline she was following, like a checklist. The lies she spun, like thread. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was orchestration. And the next time she made a move, I'd be ready. After hearing Rachel whisper, "like we planned," I couldn't unhear it. This wasn't just emotional distance. This wasn't her slowly fading out. It was a coordinated effort. She was talking to someone, and judging by her tone, it wasn't a therapist or a friend offering support. It was him. For days, I replayed the audio, over and over. Most of it was vague, carefully worded, whispered. But one evening, while she was in the shower, I went back into the recording app and played a longer segment. "I can't leave until I know Ben will adjust. I told you that." Pause. "He still hasn't figured it out. He's starting to talk more lately, though. Asking questions." Another pause, then a laugh. "No, I didn't say anything about you. I'm not stupid. You. The way she said it, light, flirtatious, confident, that was it. The final thread I needed to pull. The next day, I installed a security app that logs all outgoing calls from our home network. I didn't want to hack, I didn't want to cross boundaries, but she already had. And when the app flagged a number that had appeared 3 nights in a row between 11 p.m. and midnight, I did what any betrayed, desperate man would do. I dialed it, blocked ID. The voice that answered chilled me. Hello, male, early 40s, calm, confident. Who is this? I asked. Who's this? He replied. You called me? I didn't say anything. Just listened to the silence stretch out like a rope between us. Look, man, if this is Rachel's husband, I'm not trying to cause problems. Click. He hung up. I sat in my car, heart pounding like I'd just run 10 miles. He knew who I was. He didn't even pretend. And worse, he wasn't apologetic. He wasn't worried. He was ready for me to find out. Later that night, I looked at Rachel differently. She walked through the kitchen in her robe like nothing had happened, kissed Ben goodnight, watched an episode of her favorite true crime show on the couch, eyes locked to the screen, like she wasn't the subject of one herself. I stared at her hands. How long had she been giving those hands to someone else? Touching another man with the same fingers that used to run through my hair. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because this wasn't the climax. This was the setup. The next journal entry confirmed everything. Ethan's been acting strange, not suspicious, just off. More present with Ben, more observant. It's fine. He's probably just trying to fix things again. I have to be careful. Mike says I'm too soft sometimes, that I should have left already. Mike. Now I had a name. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just trying to protect myself anymore. I was protecting Ben. Because the idea that this man, this secret partner, might one day become his stepfather, unacceptable. The betrayal was no longer theoretical. It had a voice, a name, a schedule, a plan. And if Rachel wanted an ending, I'd write it myself. One where I didn't lose everything. One where I didn't walk away, the broken man she expected me to become. By now, the roles were clear. Rachel was the actor, Mike was her audience, and I was the character she assumed would never read the script. But I had, and I wasn't following it. I was rewriting it. The next weekend, she took Ben to her sister's for a mom and kid overnight trip. I stayed behind, telling her I needed to catch up on work. The moment they left, I went to the safe in our closet and pulled out every document that mattered. Birth certificates, tax returns, mortgage papers, insurance, Ben's school records. I scanned everything, uploaded it to a private drive, and backed it up to an encrypted USB. I started building a timeline, not just of her journal entries, but of her behavior, the phone calls, the journal entries that lined up with family vacations, PTA meetings, holidays, moments that were supposed to be our happiest. While in her private pages, she was documenting how tired she was of pretending. The lie was deep. It stretched across seasons and holidays and birthdays, but I saw all of it now. The next part was harder. I had to talk to someone about it. Not a lawyer. I already had him. Not family. I wasn't ready to burn that bridge yet, so I met with my best friend Tyler, a guy I'd known since college. Loyal, grounded, the kind of person who doesn't talk unless he has something worth saying. We met at a diner halfway between our houses. I picked a booth in the corner. When I finished laying everything out, he just sat there, silent, blinking. Jesus, Ethan, he said. You're sure? Every word's in writing, I said. And she's been calling this guy Mike, whispering to him while I'm sleeping in the next room. He rubbed his face like he was trying to wake up from a bad dream. What are you gonna do? Wait, I said. Watch. Then move when it hurts her most. Legally. You're not gonna tell her you know. Not yet. If she wants to choreograph an exit, I'm gonna ruin her opening night. Tyler stared at me for a long time. Then he leaned in. Just promise me one thing. What's that? Whatever you do, protect Ben. Don't use him as a pawn. That hit me hard, because deep down, I already knew. Ben was the only thing I truly couldn't lose. Not the house, not the marriage, not the perfect family image we'd painted. Just my son. My real son. Even if Rachel was the one biologically connected. Because fatherhood isn't about biology. It's about who shows up. And I'd been showing up since day one. When I got home, the house felt quieter than usual. I walked through it slowly. Every photo, every framed memory, looked different now, staged, like props in a play I didn't realize I was starring in. And yet, I wasn't broken. I was ready. That night, Rachel called to say goodnight. I put her on speaker. Ben's asleep. We'll head back around noon. Sounds good, I said. How was your day? Quiet, productive. Pause. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm just thinking about the future. Another pause. Anything I should know? Not yet, I said, smiling into the silence. But soon. She didn't press, but I could hear it in her breath. The hesitation. The first crack. And I knew something she didn't. She had been rehearsing her exit for 3 years, but I'd been preparing her curtain call for 3 weeks, and it was almost showtime. Rachel and Ben came home Sunday afternoon. She wore sunglasses, even though it was overcast. Her hair was tied back. She looked lighter, like someone who'd made peace with a decision they didn't plan to tell you yet. Ben ran up, hugged me tight. I held him longer than usual. Missed you, buddy. Missed you too, Dad. Rachel stepped into the house behind him, her eyes scanning mine. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, with the warmest smile I could fake. Just glad you're home. She relaxed. She really thought I didn't know. That night, I made her dinner, set the table, lit a candle like it was 2017 again, and we were still pretending to be newlyweds. She raised an eyebrow. What's the occasion? No occasion, I said. Just thought we should eat together. She played along, forked through her salad, asked about Ben's school project, told me about a new freelance client, and then halfway through her second glass of wine she asked, Are you okay? There it was again. She could sense the shift, not in what I was saying, but in what I wasn't saying. I smiled. I've just been doing a lot of thinking lately, about life, about us. Her fingers froze on her wine glass. Like what kind of thinking? The kind you do when you realize things haven't been working for a long time. She nodded slowly. Yeah, I felt that too. I tilted my head. Have you? I mean, she hesitated, and I could tell she was weighing her words carefully. We haven't really been us in a long time. Why do you think that is? I asked. She sighed. I don't know. Life? Work? Maybe we just stopped growing together. I leaned back in my chair, watching her closely. She was testing me, feeling out whether this was the moment to finally say it. But I wasn't going to make it easy. Do you ever feel like you've already made up your mind? I asked. What do you mean? Like maybe you've already decided to leave. You're just waiting for the right timing. That was it. That was the opening. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted. Her shoulders stiffened. But she didn't say yes. She didn't say no either. She just looked at me and said, Ethan, where is this coming from? I wanted to scream from your journal, from your late-night whispers to Mike, from every smile you faked while planning my emotional execution. But instead, I said, I just feel like we've both been playing parts we don't even believe in anymore. She swallowed hard, looked down at her plate. Maybe we should talk to someone, she whispered. Like a therapist? Yeah, before things get worse. Before things get worse. She had no idea how close she was to the edge. That night, I went to the guest room and slept there for the first time. Not out of anger, out of clarity, because if she wanted distance, I'd give it to her. On my terms. And if she wanted out, I'd open the door, but I'd be the one holding the key. Rachel didn't ask why I slept in the guest room. She just accepted it. Like she'd expected it eventually. Like maybe this was a step closer to what she wanted. But what she didn't realize, what she couldn't possibly know, was that I had already moved miles ahead of her. She was trying to steer a ship with no sails, because I had already pulled them down. Over the next week, I took control of my exit, not hers. I scheduled a meeting with my lawyer, filed preliminary paperwork, custody planning, asset division scenarios, timelines. Everything laid out, backed by dates, by documentation, by her own words. The journal entries were gold, not just for emotional proof, but for strategic evidence. They painted a picture of intent, of manipulation, of someone who wasn't just falling out of love, but deliberately manufacturing my decline in the relationship so she could exit guilt-free. In legal terms, that's called emotional coercion. And it matters. Rachel, meanwhile, began testing little conversations again. Ben's been asking more questions lately about why we don't go out as a family anymore. What did you tell him? I asked. That adults go through hard times, that we're working on it. She was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to position herself as the thoughtful, gentle one holding the broken marriage with two hands. But she didn't know I'd already taken it out of her hands entirely. Then came the moment I was waiting for. A Tuesday night. Rainy. Quiet. Ben had fallen asleep, watching cartoons on the couch. Rachel and I were in the kitchen, standing across from each other at the island. She cleared her throat and said, I think we need to talk about where this is going. There it was, the line she had practiced in her journal. The moment she imagined herself saying for over 3 years. And I was going to let her say it. But first, I asked, Are you sure you want to talk about that now? She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think we've both known for a while that this isn't working. Right, I said. But whose choice is that? She blinked. What do you mean? You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Her face turned pale. What are you talking about? I walked over to the cabinet, opened the drawer, and pulled out the navy blue journal. Set it on the counter. You want to talk about where this is going? Let's start with where it's already been. Her hands trembled. You... read it. Every page, I said. Every plan, every lie. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I wasn't angry. I wasn't yelling. I was calm, and that scared her more. You didn't fall out of love, I said. You withdrew it. You rationed it. You created distance on purpose so I'd look like the one who gave up. Her eyes welled with tears, but I didn't flinch. You built your exit like a strategy, and I've been 3 steps ahead since the moment I saw your handwriting. She tried to explain, apologize, backpedal. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you meant to leave me. You just wanted to do it without the guilt. I slid a file folder toward her. This is a draft agreement. It favors joint custody. I'm willing to keep things civil. For Ben. She flipped it open. stunned. You already did this? I had to, I said, because you already decided everything else. That night, she slept in the guest room. Not because I told her to, but because she knew the story had flipped. She wasn't orchestrating anything anymore. Now, she was reacting, and I was in control of the final chapter. Rachel moved out 2 weeks later. Not with drama, not with slammed doors or screaming, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like closure when you've already said everything that needed to be said. Through action, through documents, through the absence of illusions. She packed lightly, no tears. She didn't hug me, didn't try. Ben stayed with me the first week. The custody agreement hadn't been finalized yet, but we had a temporary schedule worked out. And in those first few nights, those quiet, strange, empty-feeling nights, something unexpected happened. I felt okay. Not good, not happy, but okay. Ben asked a few questions here and there. Is Mommy mad at you? Did you fight? Will we live in the same house again someday? Each time, I gave him the truth he was old enough to hold. No, she's not mad. We didn't fight. We just changed. We'll always be in your life, even if we're not in the same house. I didn't poison him with blame, didn't burden him with journal entries or betrayal, because he didn't deserve that, and I would not let my pain become his trauma. Rachel and I spoke mostly through email, cordial, direct, focused on logistics, school drop-offs, doctor appointments, holidays. One time she wrote, I didn't expect you to handle this the way you did. And I responded, that's because you never really knew me. You knew the version of me you needed to justify leaving. No reply after that. Mike? Gone. She didn't admit it, but I saw the shift. The late-night calls stopped. The tone in her voice when she said she was focusing on herself felt like someone picking up the pieces of a plan that exploded in their hands. She thought she'd leave quietly and land in a better story. Instead, she left exposed and alone. Not because I hurt her, because she bet on my weakness and lost to my strength. Months passed. The journal stayed in my drawer, locked, unread, unfinished. I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't angry, just done. A year later, Ben and I were baking cookies one Saturday afternoon. Flour on the counters, chocolate chips everywhere, laughter echoing through the kitchen like music from a better life. He looked up at me and said, Dad, I like it when it's just us. I smiled. Me too, buddy. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't lose everything. I kept the most important part, the realest part, the only thing that was never part of someone else's plan. My son.